Good afternoon, dear students. Today we are going to complete what we have started in last week. Last week we have said or we have tackled with the types of clauses or types of sentences, saying they are statement means declarative, questions means interrogative, command means imperative, and the last one exclamatory. We have started with discussing the interrogative. With all, we have said that they are of three types. Yes, no questions. And these three types according, or this classification is according the answer it requires. The first type is yes, no question. The second, WH question, and the last, which is what? The alternative question. We have discussed the yes-no question, which is what challenges the validity of the whole sentence, whether it is reject or accept the sentence. The second second category of interrogative is the WH questions. All of us know that WH questions are formed with the aid of one of WH. Why it is WH? Because they are formed by using one of these of these items: who, whom, whose, what, which, when, where, how, why, and how long, how often, how much, how many. Okay, so why they are WH? Because they are formed by the assistance, by the aid of such items or such elements. Again, we have said that WH questions seeks information or seeks something missing in a piece of or a part in the whole sentence. As a rule, the Q element means a question element اللي هو WH element. Okay, Q element, that is a clause element containing the keywords. Keywords اللي هو what, who, whom, whose, which, and something like that. All of us, we know each item or each element from these Q elements asking for something. For example, who for subjects, whom for objects, whose for possessiveness, what for things, which for inanimate things, when for time, where for places, how for manner, and why for reason. Generally comes first. But as a rule, with the WH questions, they come what at the first of the sentence. Second, the Q word itself takes first position in the Q element. The only exception to the second principle اللي هو هذا إنه takes first position in the Q element. when he, as a rule, إنه if you have a WH questions, you should put the WH item at the beginning of the question. But here we have an exception in which when the Q word occurs in a prepositional complement. Here English provides a choice between two constructions, one formal and other less formal. بالformal شو يقول لي? The preposition precedes the complement. The preposition precedes the complement. يعني before the Q elements. In contrast to the colloquial, وهذه formal. The complement comes first and the preposition retains the position it has in a declarative sentence. هذه formal. On what did you base your prediction? هذه formal. تشوفون it is what before the complement, before or precedes the Q element. هذه the only exception that we have. Again, we have what, this is very colloquial. What did you base your prediction on? This is colloquial, in which I start, or informal. I start my question normally with a WH question, but actually it is something colloquial, something not standard, something not formal. We may perhaps this difference. Why to express this difference? more neatly by saying that colloquial English insists that the keyword comes first, while formal English insists that the keyword as a whole comes first. On the item 7.53, here I have something very important. What the Q element operates in various clause functions. Functions means what is its function in this sentence. I said that it can ask for a subject. It can ask for an object, direct or indirect. It can ask for the manner. It can ask for what? For the place, for time. So here I have what the different or the various clause functions that the Q element can operate in a sentence. The first one, who opened my letter? Who opened my letter? When I ask, when I give you such an item or such a sentence, I underlined who, saying state its function. State its function. Since who asks for a subject, so it is the subject of the sentence. Okay, so here it's the function of who is S. Q element asking about subject. Here which, its function is direct object. Whose, its function is subject complements. Whose beautiful antiques are these? Whose beautiful antiques are these? So it is what? Subject complements. How wide did they make the bookcase? It is object complement because it takes the position or the function of the object complements. When will you come back? It is for what? For time, adverb of time. Where shall I put the glasses? It is adverb of a place. Why are they always complaining? It is an adverb or an adjunct for a reason. How, adjuncts for process or manner. How much, it is intensifying, adverb for intensifying. How long have you been waiting? It is for duration. How long? Long. How often? It is an adjunct for frequency. As this example, look at this one, please. Look at the intonation that we have, the tone, intonation. They are all having falling intonation. In contrast to the yes/no question, in which I have what rising intonation for yes/no question. Like in big WH question, I have falling intonation. We have we see above that normal statement order of طبعا all of us know how there is some sort of inversion between the subject and the verb when what? When I form a WH question. يعني which books have you lent him? Which books have you lent him? هذا طبعا this is the subject, but I see that the auxiliary or the operator precedes the subject in the question. We see above the normal statement order of elements is absent in WH question, not only by the initial placing of the Q element, but by the inversion of subject and operator in all cases. يشوفون هذا subject, this is the auxiliary before the subject. This is the subject, this is the auxiliary. This is the subject, this is the auxiliary. هذا subject, this is the auxiliary. Subject بعد يعني auxiliary followed by the subject. Auxiliary followed by the subject. Did as auxiliary, you as a subject. Does auxiliary, he as subject. Have auxiliary, you followed by the subject, you. وهكذا. Except by if you have the WH Q or the WQ element who asking for the subject, in which the Q element is the subject, where the rule of initial Q element takes precedence over the rule of inversion. يعني ماكو عندي rule of inversion، ماكو there is something يعني the operator before the subject، كأنه أنا مجرد يعني I omit the subject substituted by what? By who. That's all. Subject of operator inversion is the same in its application to WH questions. يعني عندي باليس no يعني if you do not have an auxiliary you may make use of do, did, does. If you have has a or have يعني the same application of yes no question depending on what. If you do not have an auxiliary يعني if it is past depend on did as an auxiliary. If it is a present do or does depending on the type or the number of the subject that you have. If you do not have يعني you have you should you say what maybe have as a main verb or have as what as an auxiliary depending on whether it is what British have يعني how are you, who have, say what how are you, who have we here. Leave this note as a whole يعني A will be with C and D all. The note as a whole leave it. The note as a whole leave it. It is not required from you. Again, the third one or the third category of questions, which is what the alternative questions. Alternative questions يعني it is something a mixing from yes no question and what and WH question. I have a mix يعني you will find that alternative questions, two types of alternative questions. The first resembling a yes no question and the second WH question. Look at this one. Would you like chocolate, vanilla, or strawberry? هذه what? It resembles yes no question since it starts with what? With an auxiliary, with an operator. In contrast to what? Which ice cream would you like? Question mark. Chocolate, vanilla, or strawberry. And I have what? It starts with WH element, so it resembles the what? Yes, no, or WH question. The first type, what is the difference between this one? يعني هسه هذه قلنا it is alternative question, but it starts with a with an auxiliary يعني إنه راح تشبه, it resembles the yes no question. But what is the difference between the normal yes no question and such type of alternative questions? The main difference when بالintonation. The intonation. If you remember, yes no question takes what? Final rising tone. Okay? But such type of alternative, it contains a separate nucleus for each alternative. يعني a rise occurs on each item in the list. Except the last, on which there is a fall indicating that the list is complete. يعني هسه إذا نريد نقرأ this example. Would you like chocolate, vanilla, or strawberry? بيشوفون there is a rising tone on each one. هذه rising tone. هذه rising tone. Only the last one, which contains what? A falling tone, to indicate that the list is complete. The difference of intonation between alternative and yes/no question is important. Why? In that ignoring it can lead to misunderstanding, as the contrast between these replies indicates. هذه alternative. طب shall we go by bus or train? Shall we go by bus or train? Bus, say what? Bus rising, train, but it is what? Falling. جاوب هنا by bus. This is what? Yes, no question. Shall we go by bus or train? No. Let us take the car. هذه هنا بالalternative ما ينطيني other option. يعني you should choose one of these two options. يعني one of the options that are found or that are mentioned in what? In the alternative. In contrast to the yes/no question, no, you may have the other option. May have other option other than those mentioned in the question. يعني هنا bus or train لا اختاروا something else like car. The second type of alternative question طبعا هذه what requires for what the first type اللي هو resembles the yes/no question. The second type of alternative question is really a compound of two separate questions. A WH question followed by elliptical alternative question of the first type. Thus, exercise or example number 2 might be taken as a reduced version of. هذه راح نحدد يعني. This is the first one كأنه which ice cream would you like؟ إذا نقول هذه الجملة وحدها this question alone, it would be normal WH question. Which ice cream would you like? Okay, but would you like chocolate, vanilla, or strawberry? Here you would have what? You would have what? Two types of the questions اللي هو WH and yes/no question. Any positive yes/no question can be converted into an alternative question by adding on not or a matching negative clause. Yes/no question يعني are you coming؟ هذا yes/no question ما بيها I cannot add on not. Alternative, are you coming or not? Are you coming on aren't you coming? Yes/no question, no such matching, no such addition. But with alternative, no, I can add on not or negative clause. اللي هو هذه positive هذه negative clause. The alternative variant by spelling out the negative aspect of the question is rather petulant in tone, but it is otherwise indistinguishable in meaning from the yes/no question. This is something what some sort of differences between yes/no question and alternative question. Yeah.